Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Eliana Kernodle. A California school district allegedly had a teacher teach a lesson and read a gender identity book to fifth graders, then had those fifth graders watch a video version of the book with their kindergarten mentees and teach them the lesson they just learned. Joining me to discuss this is Chalkboard News editor Brendan Clary. Brendan, now parents are suing for a notification and opt-out option here. There are some things that already require notification and opt-out options, but this didn't fit into that. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah, so essentially there's a program in this elementary school called a buddy program. And this would be like a 1 day a week where the fifth graders would teach their kindergarten mentees, what about a lesson. And so essentially, yeah, these parents are asking for an opt-out option for that because of this this book called My Shadow is Pink, right? And discusses some of these like transgender themes, right? With a shadow, kind of revealing the main character's like true spirit. And so then, your shadow is pink. I know it's true. I see now it's true. It's not just a shadow. It's your innermost you. Again, I'm quoting from the book, which is like described in the lawsuit. So the parents are alleging, hey, this is against our religious beliefs, and we'd like to have an opt-out for this.
Can you get into what is it that they can opt out of, and why is this not included?
So yeah, specifically the parents of the children who are the actual plaintiffs, right? They're the ones who are suing the school district with their friends. The court language is like through their friends, which are their parents. And in one case, I believe it's a pseudonym instead of their names. But these are minor kids suing the school district and officials. And essentially, they were able to opt out of the health unit, and so they were able to avoid their children being exposed to religiously objectionable instruction on gender identity in the health unit. So that's what they were able to opt out of. But essentially, the school district, according to the complaint, and this is again from the complaint, the school district said that they affirm religiously objectionable views in this buddy program without parental notice or that opt-out option, right? So that's the distinction, is that you can opt out of these health things that are like, oh, this is for sex ed. But when it comes to this buddy program, they could not opt out of that. And so, and they also weren't notified, right? So I think that that's the rub there, is if, you have a sex ed class, teachers send, here's a form, take it to your parents, make sure that they see it and sign it, and know that the sex ed unit is coming, and that, they can opt out, right? This is happening. This is what you need to know. This is what's going to cover, those kinds of things, right? But then this buddy program, that happens once a week. It is supposed to just be like, that positive, like, hey, we're going to pull you alongside and help the younger student. But then this was, and the case lists everything out about like how, when it meets and how long it goes. And it's a sweet program essentially. But then basically earlier this year on April 30th and in May, there was a book called My Shadow is Pink. And then it's that equity book that is approved by the school district. And so it's a, designated, like, let's try to build this understanding. So it includes everything too. I think that they must have had some FOIA, documentation from the complaint, like text messages between teachers, or like messages between teachers and stuff about how they love the message of the book.
Yeah, the lawsuit kind of lays out what happened in that lesson, what that looked like. Can you sort of walk us through that? Yeah,
so essentially they read the book, My Shadow is Pink, and I believe they also had to watch a movie at the same time, like alongside. And so those students, the older students, the 11-year-olds, they had to teach their mentee, their kindergarten mentee, about My Shadow is Pink. And essentially that is a book about a boy character realizing that he actually is a girl, and that, inside, like, his shadow, which is kind of a euphemism for his gender identity, is pink the whole time, right? And so that's what was taught, but there was no parental notification, the parents allege, and that there was no opt-out, the parents allege.
So this was something that first the fifth graders were taught, and then once they went to their buddy program, they then had to share that lesson with their buddies. Is that what happened?
Right. So a teacher read the book to the fifth grade class. which the students apparently found unusual. And then immediately after, they sat next to their kindergarten mentees, and they had like the video version of the book. And in one of those, one of the plaintiffs, the children said that one of the fifth grade plaintiffs said he wanted to cover his buddy's eyes and ears to protect him. So that's directly from the lawsuit there. And then they were told to have their buddies choose a color representing their buddy's gender and draw their buddy's outlines in chalk in that color to communicate gender was determined by an internal feeling. So you're having fifth graders ask kindergartners, what is your gender? What do you feel your gender is? And then draw their outline in chalk to communicate that. So essentially, that's like another point of contention there, is that that these students were bothered, but that they had to, quote, push the idea that individuals can select their own gender to a kindergartner, knowing this kindergarten buddy looks up to them as role models and trusts their opinions. So I think that's kind of the thrust of that peer-to-peer sort of education. We've seen this before, actually, in California and Berkeley High School at a different level, where you have 10th and 11th graders going into 9th grade classes at Berkeley High School and teaching them about sex ed. And then it's also very kind of complicated because you can't request that information. You can't find that curricula because it's created by students. And so then it's protected. So it does, also create that kind of, like, there's those dimensions there of you have students and maybe you trust them a little bit more than you would a teacher on some of these issues. From a First Amendment point of view, it raises the question of like, what kinds of, is this compelled speech if you're telling a student that they have to do this activity? And that's something that the courts are going to have to figure out here with this. Like, did it cross lines and how far did it cross them?
So do we have a sense for where this lawsuit is headed?
Yeah, so they've challenged on a number of different actions, but specifically the First Amendment and then also the 14th Amendments with the free exercise clause and free speech. And, there's also these concerns about how, Christian religious parents, like what kind of control they have over their parents' education in a public school setting. And that's come up in a lot of different areas and a lot of different school districts recently, including the Montgomery County Public School District, where religious families have sued and said, hey, we need to be able to opt out of these diverse texts, as they're called, or these equity texts. So that similar kind of language there of stuff like this that is maybe not in the sex ed class. It's all throughout the curriculum. And lower courts have said that the Montgomery County Public School in Maryland can do that, that they can have these texts kind of dispersed and that parents can't opt out of them. So they can have a no opt-out policy. But parents are trying to take that to the Supreme Court. So that's something that we can, watch and wait for. So it's uncertain, but this is, an ongoing question, right? Of like, how much control can parents have in a school setting where the government has a viewpoint, and that's what it's argued in Montgomery County, is that it has a position of trying to bring in diversity and inclusion, including in sex and gender, right? So that's one of its, in terms of viewpoint diversity, it's trying to bring in all those different kinds of texts as its baseline.
Well, Brendan, thank you for your insights on this story. This story came from one of our reporters over at the Center Square, but we cross-promote it on Chalkboard News. So if you want to keep up with this story, you can follow it in either place, Center Square or chalkboardnews.com.